out there in society, we get a lot of messages about what we should look like, how we should behave, what we should even feel. And yet there's so much more here inside of us that wants to get out, right? And but I truly believe that vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is the opposite, is courage. Shame is one of those things that we all have it. And nobody wants to talk about it. And the less we talk about shame, the more we have it.
Welcome to yourbrilliance.com. I'm your host, Amy Waterman. And today our topic is authenticity. Can you be who you really are? Or do you have to keep up appearances? Now, we women are so good at being who other people want us to be. We're so good at fitting in because we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We're so socially sensitive that we know intuitively when to keep our mouths shut and to keep our truth to ourselves. But we pay a price for that. Everyone loves us, but no one really knows us. So what would it take for us to drop the mask of perfection, be who we really are, and stop apologizing for not being who other people want us to be? We are about to find out. Our guest today is Monica Ottosson, a Daring Way facilitator who specializes in the work of shame and vulnerability researcher Brené Brown. Monica is also a certified coactive coach who's trained at the Coaches Training Institute. In addition to working with clients all over the world, she leads workshops and facilitates trainings. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I have an embarrassing fangirl question to ask. You have met Brené Brown. Now, she is amazing in person as she sounds in her books.
So to be fair, I haven't spent one-on-one time with her, but I was trained by, part of my training for the Daring Way was with her. So I got to see her in a group setting with one of my colleagues then that were to become Daring Way facilitators. And yeah, I think that she pretty much shows up the same way in the trainings as she does in her videos, as she does in her books. I'm sure she, shows up differently. She might show up differently at home, but no, I think she is pretty much, what you see is what you get. That's the feeling I get anyway.
And that's authenticity, right? She walks her talk. Now, for those of you who don't know Brené's talk on the power of vulnerability is one of the top 5 most viewed TED Talks in the entire world. Like, she's been on Oprah, this woman. And her goal is to start a global conversation about shame and vulnerability. And coincidentally, shame and vulnerability are 2 of the biggest barriers to us being who we really are. So, Monica, do you want to talk about that?
Whew, you're bringing some big topics here. Shame and vulnerability. Yeah, let's start with vulnerability. So first of all, what I always tell people is that we usually compare our insides with our other people's outsides. Meaning, here I am with my imperfections, with my pain, with my hurt, with everything that's me, which is complex, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And I compare with that with something that I see on the outside of other people. And that's not a fair comparison. So I just say, let's start there, right? Like, let's stop that comparison. When it comes to vulnerability, it really is showing up and be seen, but it's risky. The definition for vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And that is, that's hard, to show up and have no guarantees of what will, come back in return. But we cannot, I really believe that we cannot. Vulnerability is, as you say, one of the biggest sort of gateways to connection to other people. And we are all hardwired for connection. So we unfortunately need to, go into uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. I think what is tricky with vulnerability is there's so many myths about vulnerability. The biggest one being that vulnerability is a weakness. I don't know how it is with you, but I grew up in a society, my accent is Swedish, I'm from Sweden, where where we that wasn't anything that we even saw a lot of. So it was like, you buckle up, you armor up, and just go out there with your game face on. So that, I think that works against us in that sense, right? That out there in society, we get a lot of messages about what we should look like, how we should behave, what we should even feel. And yet there's so much more here inside of us that wants to get out, right? And but I truly believe that vulnerability isn't weakness. Vulnerability is the opposite, is courage. And another thing that's interesting with vulnerability is that there are also a lot of paradoxes when it comes to vulnerability. So for example, when I meet you, I think vulnerability is courage in you, but I feel that vulnerability is weakness in me, which is a paradox, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And another one is like, when I meet you, like we met today for the first time, and I want to see real. So I want to see you and your vulnerabilities, because I just, that's how I want to connect with you. Yet it's the last thing I want you to see in me. Yeah. So there's so many myths, paradoxes and so on going on with vulnerability. So it's tricky for sure. And then when the second big one, then, you know, it's the shame, and that's Brené Brown's work around shame. Shame is one of those things that we all have it, and nobody wants to talk about it. And the less we talk about shame, the more we have it. Shame absolutely hates having words wrapped around it. So this is something that, you know, and I think that's also part of what, you know, Brené Brown is doing. And we do in our workshops, we really look at, you know, when do I feel shame? What triggers shame in me? How do I act with shame, you know, when shame shows up? Because ultimately, we are built for connection, and shame is when we feel I'm bad, right? Like I did something bad, I'm not worthy, I'm not good. So we will always feel shame because we are afraid of disconnection, right? So that's another one. I think that if we could have have that being part of what we talk about as human beings, because it is such a human experience. We all have it. It's one of our biggest affects. So yeah, I think that question was really good. I could talk about it forever, but there you have it.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. One of the things that I think brings up a lot of shame nowadays, it's funny, is social media. Because on social media, everybody puts off their perfect self. Like when you look at some people's Instagram feeds, you think, I want that life. And it's fantastic because on social media, you can hide all the messiness. Like if your life is going through a hard spot, you just don't post as much. Or you carefully curate the pictures you post. You never have to be vulnerable, and you can be as perfect as everyone else. So how does this all play out in the age of social media?
Well, so I think that when we come back, I mean, if we come back to what it really is about, is I feel it's about perfectionism, right? We want to try to show up and be perfect. There is not such a thing, right? And perfectionism really is a way to armor up in order to not be vulnerable. And so I feel that perfectionism it's just another, I mean, we are armoring up because something happened when we were young. We got messages and so on to our, you know, and we protected ourselves by armoring up with perfectionism, among many other ways to armor up as well. But so when it comes to social media, you were asking about that specifically. I just don't believe that there's so many things around it. But I do believe that if we try to be perfect, we're going to hustle. We're going to hustle for worthiness, and we're not going to truly connect with other people. And I think one other thing with social media, I think we believe that vulnerability is oversharing. So like showing my latest bikini wax, that is not vulnerability, that is oversharing. So there's also that thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. One of the things that I also think that we get into trouble with is when we think that people will like us better if we're perfect. Like, this is really what's underneath it all, is that if we have a perfect life, we're going to get lots of friends who are going to be successful socially. And one of the other places it plays out, of course, is in dating. You know, everybody wants to be, I'm the perfect woman, choose me, as opposed to, I'm sorry, you know, I'm a woman with baggage and issues and you may not like me. You know, we don't want to be vulnerable. We want to be perfect so that we're liked. How do we break that?
You know what? This is actually one where I would like to ask you, what do you think about this?
Yeah, well, it's funny because in what I do, you know, unfortunately, oversharing is part of it. You know, you want to share the parts of yourself that are broken and talk about how you have learned to start healing them. You know, because unfortunately, I can't take women who are perfect and make them more perfect. My interest is in those women who are like me and we're broken, like we're seriously broken. Life has broken us in so many places. And, you know, you patch one and you patch the other and you patch the other. And that's a part of loving yourself. You know, that's part of loving yourself. It's not part of trying to be whole again, because we can never patch up the broken places so people don't think we're broken. The point is to show love to ourselves by applying love to those broken places.
And I love that you said that, because I also believe that one thing about vulnerability, that it is also the fact that we share our stories with the people that earn to hear them, sort of speak. So some people think, oh, do I now need to go like open my heart and be vulnerable with everybody? No, we have different forums for different sort of things, right? So I might not always be going around being 100% vulnerable. That would be really hard. So I think that what you're saying maybe is that, you know, in a forum where that is part of the growth, right? We are sharing, and then that is a way to connect too. Or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We share so that we can show that we're not alone. Like, one of the lovely things that Brené talks about a lot is that when you're in the ring fighting, you know, you are getting beaten down, you're getting dusty, you're getting bloodied up. But those people in the stands who are criticizing you, they don't have a right to talk about it. And so for me, we are all in that ring and we are all dusty and bloody and bruised. And we have to get up over and over again, and it's tiring. And so there's no room there to judge other women for not being perfect, because you're only perfect when you're sitting in the stands criticizing other people.
I love that you said that. I love that you say that. Thank you for saying that. I think that you're so right about that. And there's another thing, as women, I think a lot of our way to connect is to ask, what do you think? How would you do this? And so on. And we might ask people, for example, I always say, why would I ask somebody about marriage advice that has a shitty marriage, for example, right? Or, but and I think that that's being part of the arena. So looking at the arena, who is here in the arena with me? You know, who is doing this work? You know, those, I value those opinions. But if you're sitting, on the cheap seat and hurling down your advice and stuff, that's not really, it's hard to not listen to, but that's really the work, I think, around worthiness, and so to realize, I'm not going to listen to you. You're not here, being, as you were saying, dirty and dusty with me. So let's stay here in the arena. I'm going to check with you guys. So, yeah.
And one of the things I love is, we often think that the people we should follow are the perfect people. We should take makeup tips from the Kardashians because they always look perfect. We should take marriage tips from the people who've been married for 50 years. But in fact, the people who are most useful to us are the people who actually maybe don't have the advantages makeup-wise. They're struggling with the same issues we are, or who have the crappy marriage and are trying to survive because they are actually struggling. And because they're struggling, they have wisdom that the people who have it easy maybe don't. So I want to quickly move to another topic. We are talking about authenticity and being ourselves, and part of being ourselves is, of course, showing up in all of our imperfection. But another part of it is knowing who we are without reference to other people. Like when you are a wife, you often adopt a lot of your husband's beliefs and attitudes because you're a team. And so you kind of believe like you should be together. And, as a daughter, you pick up so many of your parents' beliefs and attitudes. And so one of the challenges with authenticity is not just showing up in your imperfection, but actually finding out what is you and what is not you. Could you talk a little bit about that?
This is where I think that value work is very, very important. I think that both in my one-on-one coaching and in the Daring Way, this is the groundwork that we do. That's like session number 1. It's, okay, what are my values? What is important to me? I think that sometimes, just like you're saying, there's so many different arenas and we show up in so many different ways. And it's almost like, like you're saying, we're losing ourselves. We don't even know our voice. So it's back to saying, okay, what are my values? What is important to me? So, what I find is many can't really, they sort of know their values, but they can't really express them like exactly what they are. So to go back and say, okay, whatever it is, generosity, whatever the value, there's so many different values, right? But to go back to that and then have that sort of as a guiding star in all of these different places. I think that is some of the core, deepest work, or the most fundamental work that we can do. And not only does it help us, it can help us in things like decisions. I know I work with a lot of women where it's hard, I just don't know what I want. And then just like, okay, so you have A and you have B. Yeah. Where are your values? Where are an A? Are there none there? Oh, and here, there are a bunch of them here. So it's really about, having a look at those basic things. And even more, so you're talking about the arena and being dirty and with face down. That is so helpful when we are, because we will fall and we will be dirty. But if we know that, okay, I did show up, I showed up with my values, and this is what is important to me, then that will be sort of our guiding star. I'm not saying it's always easy, we fail and that is hard and it hurts and it's painful and all of that. But I really believe that is sort of some of the groundwork in order to come back to ourselves. And then I also believe that, especially now, there's so many places where we get information from, and many of us have forgotten maybe to listen in. We're running from here to there, doing a lot of things, being a lot of things for other people and so on, and to take the time to listen into our bodies. Our bodies are so wise. Yeah. Many times, I think many of us do not listen. We say, I'll do that. Don't worry, I'll do that, instead of, what do I really want here? And
yes.
So I think
Yeah, that's great. So authenticity then is what I'm hearing is it's kind of a checking in with yourself, taking that deep breath, kind of quieting out all the competing voices and asking your body what you want. But one of the other things I heard you say that I think is quite important is that showing up and being true to your values doesn't mean you'll always win. It doesn't protect you from failure.
You will fall.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's part of the journey, and that's part of what's hard about showing up authentically.
Yeah. Now, you lead Daring Way workshops, and these are based off from the work of Brené Brown. Could you talk a little bit about that and what someone might experience if they went through this process?
Yeah. So, I love these workshops so much. We go through things such as vulnerability, shame, courage, empathy, compassion. We go through a lot of things during either a 3-day workshop, or I spread them out over 8 weeks. So we do 2.5 hours once a week. But what we do really at the core of work is really, okay, what thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are holding me back? And then we look at what choices can I make, and what practices can I put into place in order to live a more authentic and wholehearted life. So that's pretty much the workshop. I love it.
Oh, so for those of you watching, if you want to find out more about the Daring Way and take a Daring Way workshop with Monica, we've got a link for you. just go to yourbrilliance.org/Monica. That's yourbrilliance.org/Monica. So, Monica, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And we're coming to an end. And I wanted to ask you if you had any last message for the people viewing.
Well, I actually want to end with a Brené Brown quote that I just think it's so appropriate today and that I love. It is, owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we're brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Monica. And thank you out there so much for joining us. We hope to see you again soon. Until then, let your brilliance shine.